case Gary comes, okay.
You got some sun this weekend, huh?
Me?
Yeah.
I was at Keeneland.
Rough time?
I'll tell you what, that's about as close to heaven as you're gonna get.
Never been down there.
You there?
You know what? Should we skip this? Let me let you take this chair and I'll go get another one, Jim.
No, it's all right.
No.
You want here in there or not? There's no smells for cigarettes.
No, you can sit there. I just in case somebody else shows up, they'll already have the chairs.
Alright.
I did try to find.
Keeneland and Augusta National, as close as you can get to heaven.
Joe.
I don't know if there was 20 or so. Hopefully.
For you, it's fine. I shouldn't sit in the short one. I'm assuming somebody else will show up here in a minute. So. Let's see. Mark drive a black truck.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's pulled in.
Yeah.
So we got this one.
You need to order more chairs for this room?
I told him we're gonna order a smaller conference table. We're gonna get more chairs table.
Well, we can always move this across the street. Maybe that'd be better.
It'd be easier. We'll just put a note up on the door. That would be acceptable as long as we know that people know, wouldn't it? Yeah. Walk across the street, please.
Scoot down one or?
Hey, Mark,
How
we can
do
do
that?
that. I don't know if we're gonna have Gary here.
We'll see if we can get Gary.
What do you want me to do?
Either way, whatever you want to do.
Stand up.
We'll move this chair down.
All righty.
You can sit in it,
Okay,
if that's okay.
do whatever you like.
Oh my God, that doesn't happen.
All righty. You know, if we start a minute early, we'll just apologize to Gary when he gets here. How about that?
We have to apologize to be 7 minutes late, so.
No. He's an apology waiting to happen.
Just check.
We'll just move on. For the month of March, for the financial statements,
Yes, sir.
I sent out questions. They were sent out extremely late. They were sent out this morning. I just got these last night, so I apologize for that, but really couldn't be helped. Let's start with Scott's questions, because it's good to have somebody else asking a question.
I gotta get my answers back in line because I have them all lined up.
The
No.
Correct first.
Code Enforcement Board, what is happening with the Code Enforcement Board? Why are we still incurring costs in Code Enforcement?
Because the interlocal agreement had to be completely redone for all 7 cities, or it's now 9 cities, which means every city had to go back and re-adopt it. So each city, trying to catch up with them, had to go back and take the signed copies in front of their council and ask them to do it. I have a copy of the some of the issues that we've had. I didn't make a bunch of copies. If you want to glance over it, Scott, that'll explain some of it. And you can pass it around, I don't care, but I just didn't have a chance to make copies for everybody. So we still have our attorney dealing with some of the smaller issues that we had towards the end from your last meetings. There was a couple of code enforcement liens and stuff that were going out, weren't there, Scott?
That was back in November. I mean, when do we stop?
When you stopped
There were
going in
some
front of the
issues
courts?
regarding legal service and whether or not the individuals who we had fined at the last meeting were legally served and whether the liens were proper and could be legally applied.
Does someone challenge the liens then?
And that's what all of that, almost all of that for the first set, for the $1,000, is regarding placing the liens that the code enforcement board approved at the November meeting.
Part of the problem
And
is,
those are all dated in December, so.
there was questions, and this is trying to be answered throughout the state, but I don't know if anybody will ever give us a straight answer without just dealing with it. And that's, we have a property that's been talked about, the lady passed away. No relatives, no will, no nothing. The house is just sitting. Code enforcement started issuing liens or fines. I get fines and then, so we sent it to the attorneys. They say some attorneys say you can't move forward without a formal or some way of actually processing or notifying someone there. And if the person's dead, how do you do that? So we got into a big debate over that one.
Right.
And so that was one of the biggest challenges we faced, is being properly served of the papers.
And then the other issue was that one of the other properties that was fined had a stay in bankruptcy court issued by a federal judge, and whether we could jump in on that.
Okay.
Are we finished? Or are we still?
No, they're still pending, believe it or not. That's the challenge. Once the code enforcement, and I think we have 2 more cities to go through before that takes over, and then we will be, I'm pretty sure we should be able to hand them over to the code enforcement, interlocal joint code enforcement board.
So the outstanding lien questions are gonna be turned over to the code enforcement board after we finally get these things signed?
That's the way I would see it. I have to confirm that though, whether they'll take them over. I don't know why they wouldn't. It's just handling the process afterwards.
So
I
are
think
we,
it'd be cheaper to buy the property. I mean, this is getting
It would
ridiculous.
be. We could own it by now, probably.
I know, it's going on forever.
Problem is, we couldn't even put a lien on the one property for back taxes because the lady passed away at the end of 2012 and paid them. So last year, when she didn't pay her taxes at the end of last year, we have to wait another year before we file a lien and go ahead and foreclose on the property. It's just one of those timing things that's just unbelievable, because you can't do it for a year after you have to wait a year before you can file foreclosure or formal hearing.
Once it's all said and done, then weren't you gonna try to collect those attorney fees from the property owners?
Yes, but if there's no, and that'll be in a foreclosure type of atmosphere because there's nobody living in that house.
Right.
And yeah, exactly.
But
Yes.
somehow or another, the state would end up selling the home for the creditors or something, right?
Correct, and then we would try and get as much of our fees back as we can, yes. I
So there's
mean,
a chance to recoup some of those.
right, but the problem is,
It
until
might
you
be,
get there.
might be a while,
Yeah, exactly.
like 10 years or something.
Frustrating, trust me.
So
Residents around the area.
what's the piece in here they had to redraft the local agreement? Is that just this 125 right here?
Yep.
What is code enforcement document case?
That's the missing documents.
That's the missing documents.
What missing documents?
When I terminated the contract with Schutzman Inspection Services, we tried to go after getting all the documents back. And documents were not turned back over, so we had to start legal proceedings to try and get them back.
That got coded to code enforcement?
That's what it was. Why wouldn't it? Trying to get the code enforcement documents back. We couldn't get anything. I can recode it, I'm okay with that, but that's,
Why do we need them? Don't we already have copies of the citations that were issued? I mean, what
no,
else does he
we didn't
have?
get anything. We wouldn't receive
This goes
anything.
beyond just those liens. This is everything. He had lots of documents that, well, we think he had lots of documents that we don't currently have. That's a whole different issue from the liens. That's why I'm surprised it got coded there, but, all right.
So are we gonna go after him then, and this is gonna keep spiraling up until we get some documents back? Is that what's gonna happen? This?
I don't think you ought to reply to that at this point.
Yeah. Because of legal, it's in the legal
It's
system.
ongoing, you can't
Okay.
reply.
So code enforcement person will never end in basis on here.
Moto end, but it's not soon enough.
Okay.
You want to comment on the Cincinnati Enquirer?
Yeah, that was not the state auditor's report. Is that what you were thinking by chance?
No, it says.
I don't know what it is, it's independent audit
Independent
report, so what
The
is that?
independent auditor is John Chamberlain. We found out by state statute, we have to publish his report in the newspaper. It's never been done before, but by state statute, you have to publish that report. And that's what that is.
Yeah, the KRS reference to that.
Yeah. Through here.
Are we not allowed to like publish on our website and put a notice in the paper that says, go here to get it? You can't do that? Oh, God.
That bill has been filed the last 4 sessions, and the newspaper industry has killed it every time.
Sure, why not? They get $972 out of every little podunk town in Kentucky. Goodness, all right.
Fair question, but you know. And then the Cincinnati Bell, that's our landlines. We divide that between the police department and here.
Oh, it's landline costs, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
if that helps.
All right.
All right,
You divide between it, there's 2 separate 184 charges on there, so there's one for police, one for your.
Admin, yeah,
Okay,
we just split it straight up.
all right. Thank you.
legal summary, are you working on that?
Yeah, I hadn't gotten the bills, that's why I hadn't given it to you. So I believe it came in the mail today, so I will work on that. Like I tell
March
you.
bills came today? Is
Yeah.
that- wow. No, thanks a lot.
Yeah,
On the balance sheet, there's a duplicate tax liability of $14.
that was actually just, needs to be recoded. It was principal and interest, put in a,
Just tell them to clear it.
yep.
Retained earnings, I'm not sure, are we gonna, do I need to call John Chamberlain on that, or how? I keep asking it, and it never goes away.
I don't remember what we talked about, Jim, to be honest with you, because I remember 2 months ago, was it, we talked, and I don't remember what,
All right, if you don't mind, I'm gonna call John and ask him.
that's fine. Because really, all you're gonna do is take it out of the undesignated fund balance. I mean, it
I-
just balances
with-
back down to 998, right?
I'm with you, it just, right now, it's hard to figure out what the undesignated fund balance really is, because you do have to net out that retained earnings line
Okay,
to make it work. So I just
We
wanna
can
make sure
double check.
that that's the appropriate
Yep.
accounting for that. What happened on admin dental, it's a credit,
from one of our former employees that left in December. Ms. Robbins, for some reason, all of a sudden we got a credit back on our dental.
okay, they just overcharged us and gave us a credit for whatever reason?
We probably paid it and then they adjusted a date and then finally got the credit. Yeah.
Okay. Civil service. Can you answer that? What the heck is going on with civil service? I mean, that's not a little bit of money.
No, not at all. That had to do with the deck action.
How
From
can-
back in February with the, what's the word I'm looking for? When they file their appeals, or their motions in front of the judge.
Motion of summary judgment.
Yes.
How many attorneys does it take to file for a summary judgment?
Well, you had 2 different ones involved, 3 technically with the civil service, but that one was pretty small, 3. Civil service, ours, and then,
Is it over now, or are we still waiting, we're still waiting for a?
we're still waiting on a
declaratory
decision,
judgment, right?
yeah, technically, yes.
This next one is kind of a big deal. The budget amendment didn't get done.
I thought it did, Jim.
I didn't see it.
If you look at the contracted services, I can go over here, here's notes. Contracted services was added back into here,
Yeah, that part I agree with.
because this was the month before.
Okay, then we're in violation of the ordinance, because the current year-to-date expense is $55,000, and it says the annual budget is $50,000. That went to $85,000 last council meeting.
That's an internal line item. Once it moved back into contracted services, that became the budget, the department budget. So we're not over the department budget.
So there's no increase in that line?
I mean, it's an internal line item. If you want to change that line, we can change that line. But it's not going to change the department budget. The department budget's going to stay 985.
Okay,
No,
I mean, do you want to tell Court?
no, that's fine.
Okay.
no, I think what Jim was saying is they added 35,000 out of,
Just look at the ordinance,
yeah,
because all that they did was they took the $50,000 budget and moved it into contracted
the budget
services.
amendment actually took
Right.
35,000 out of reserves to put back into it.
No. I'll trouble.
Yeah, we'll check it.
Check it to make sure.
Yeah. I think you might be right there, Craig. I think that budget amendment that was read was just to reorganize it. I don't know if it increased the fees.
Right, no, the one that passed just moved it. Because the money we were gonna take out to add 35,000 to the separate line item was all coming from contracted services anyway.
Okay, well, just,
Double check it. We will.
yeah, send me a copy of or is the ordinance online? Yeah.
No, but I can,
Yeah.
All right, I'll look at it on it, you don't have to do anything special. Code enforcement, we already talked about. On the cash disbursements, how is this whole lien thing working? Because it confused the heck out of me.
okay. What happened was when Gerner and Kearns sent out the letters to the delinquent taxpayers, telling them what they owed, they told them that what they owed with back taxes, penalty and interest, plus a legal fee. And they told them their portion of the legal bills that they would owe in order to pay off the lien. And they were told if they had any questions to contact the city, and they gave the city's address. Well, everybody started making the checks payable to the city of Villa Hills, when the checks should have been made payable to Gerner and Kearns. We kept receiving those payments. We took the payments, cashed the checks, and then in return, we received miscellaneous revenue. The legal fees that were written into that lien, and then we basically remit those lien payments that for attorney fees back to Gerner and Kearns as a negative revenue number.
How much money are we talking about? Is it $1,500 or is there more? What I'm concerned about, Craig, is that this attorney fees. Well, is it in and out on miscellaneous revenue?
It should be in and out on miscellaneous revenue.
All right, so it's not hitting expense account at all?
Correct.
Okay. All right, that's all right then.
Next one, Mr. Cummins.
I just wanted to make sure we had some kind of an invoice.
Oh, yeah, no, we're good. He brought in copies of everything and,
Okay. I just, because there's a check made out to an employee, I just wanted to make sure that we had some documentation for what we paid that employee. It was only $63. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but
holster.
just to make sure that we've got this.
Yep.
Road salt, we sold some road salt. Who'd we sell it to?
The City of Union. City of Union sent out an email back on January 28th. We are out of salt. Can anybody please help us? When they called, we had 300 tons of salt, which was 12 rounds in our city. You know what? We can help out. So we sold them 25 tons. They covered labor, they covered the expense of the salt to make sure it gets loaded up and stuff. So,
And for the record, 25 tons is one round through our city.
yeah. We had some to spare, why not?
Any other questions on financial statements? Any reason that you can see that we should not recommend to council that they adopt these financial statements? If not, we'll make that recommendation on Wednesday. It's okay to pass out this budget?
Yep. And it's, reiterate, it's in draft form.
Yeah, I don't know if I got enough, hopefully.
If not, we'll make some, I don't need one.
Hey, Mike, real quick on the code enforcement board, I know it's not the other day, but how close were you guys to get into that?
As soon as they tell me they have 2 more signatures.
So what do we got to do with the cities? Not for that, like, the last 2 or 3 months.
They're supposed to have gotten them by the end of this month.
Who's they?
Stacy
Kent County.
Tapke from the Kent County Attorney's Office is
One
actually
running for re-election?
hand walking it.
She's actually going to
elections.
each of the council meetings to get the signatures.
So do I need to call her and say, hey, get this done, or give me my vote?
Yeah. That'll work. See what you can do out of that.
Who is it, Stacey Tapke, you said?
Yes.
She's the current attorney for the code enforcement board in KPC.
We're not gonna make a recommendation tonight to the council regarding this budget, but it's very, very preliminary, and I just thought it'd be good if we had a chance to look at it. Council's not seen this yet, and there are some big pieces of this that are missing, like there are no fixed assets in here at all. So what we're trying to do is get a baseline budget so that we have some idea, a planning perspective on where we are. And I can tell you there, besides the fixed assets, there's a potential, we've talked about the spiking issue before. There's a potential that CERS is gonna come back to us and say, you owe us X number of dollars for spiking. And that is not in this budget at all. We don't even know what that potential liability is.
Give
So
a worst case number.
$250,000 would be the worst case number. And we don't anticipate they're gonna say, write us a check. We anticipate they're gonna say, you have X number of years to pay that. So this budget would then have to cover whatever that in that fiscal period from 7/1 to 6/30, how much of that are we going to have to cover? We haven't heard a peep out of them. And, you know, you typically let sleeping dogs lie, and that's what we're doing here. But so anyway, that's not in here. And on the cover page, it's basically a summary of what we think is going to happen. The revenue number is probably pretty close. And just so you know, the revenue number has been increased by 2% on the insurance premium tax, and it's been decreased by the amount that we think we're not going to recover from the vehicle license fee. So there have been some adjustments. There's a lot of guesswork involved in this at this point. If the ballot initiative does not pass in November, then all bets are off on this whole budget. And I think we're probably going to need a budget amendment as soon as that council
So are
decides.
you really gonna stick to no property tax increase?
This is preliminary. We'll see what happens. And right now, we're showing a $217,000 surplus. So I think a property tax increase in the teeth of a surplus would be a silly thing to do, but that's just my opinion. So we're gonna have to let this play out. And I just wanted to give you guys an opportunity to look at this. We're not gonna ask you for a vote. We're not gonna ask you for anything like that. It's just simply giving you an idea of where the baseline is.
When do we need to have the readings on this? Next May and June?
I doubt if we're gonna get this together by Wednesday.
This is
For
April.
a first reading.
Correct, so we have May and June to do
So
the
have
two
first
readings.
reading in May, second reading in June, and voted in then?
And we can even do a first reading if we wanted to at a caucus, but still do the official hashing out during a regular council meeting if the council would decide to do that.
And there's always a special meeting call if necessary.
Okay.
I'm hoping that the next caucus will be, okay, let's figure out where we are on this thing. And at the end of that meeting, if there's enough give and take, there may be a first reading at the end of that meeting. So this is kind of a breathing, living document, and it'll change. I don't know if you want to go over any pieces of this. The vehicle license fee, we're assuming that we would receive $75,000, which is about 3/4 of what we think we should get between July 1 and 12/31 of next year, and hopefully it will go away on 1/1/15, assuming the ballot initiative passes. If it doesn't, then like I said, all bets are off. We'll start over again.
But weren't we gonna kill it off anyway and just keep the property tax increase, or does?
Insurance premium tax increases, not property tax.
I'm sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
insurance premium. That's already in place, right? That's approved or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And whether that would, I think because it's going to be so late in this council's life cycle, I would guess the next council will make that decision. Because they're the ones that are gonna have to live with it, not us.
Well, if the ballot initiative didn't pass, you could leave the stickers in place, right?
Absolutely.
Like the old way.
Yep. That's what it would be, just like the old way. People would have to come up here to get their stickers, or we have to do a mailing thing or something.
And considering the timing, that would probably be the way you'd want to do it, right?
You're asking me to speak for the next council.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because with the idea that
Right.
more than likely you'd want to just leave that as it is.
Probably.
Makes sense to me.
The numbers, the CERS numbers and the non-hazardous numbers, those are pretty close. The medical increase, Craig, you're pretty comfortable with that 15?
I had a long conversation with Mike Williams from Cheryl Morgan, just based on what he's seen as far as people who are renewing, are getting their renewals now, and he said that he would not go any lower than that. But he agreed that we had probably already taken our hit when we renewed in January, because we went from a non-compliant plan to a compliant plan. So we already did our 35% hit. So
Gotcha. And this does factor in 3 part-time policemen. It factors in a new chief. So in theory, we've got the expenses in here that we're going to have. And, you know, obviously it's a crapshoot, but you do what you can do.
I mean, full-time we have one, yes.
5, right now, 5.
5 full-time, 3 part-time, and then a chief cover.
How far off are we from?
The chief is
selecting
included
the
in
chief?
the 5 full-time though, right?
Please,
No, there'll be an additional. We have 5 now.
Okay.
we have interviews set up all day Monday, starting at Wednesday, this 2 days from now, we have interviews set up all day.
Are we talking about the selection will be in a couple of weeks, a couple of months?
No, within, I'd say 30, give or take days. You know, after this round, if we find candidates that we feel are acceptable, then what we would do is, then what I plan on doing is putting together another round of interviews with internal people as opposed to external. Because right now, it's, you know, Chief of Police in Covington's joining me, the Chief of Police from Campbell County, Mike Daly's joining me, Kenton County Attorney Gary Edmondson, myself, and somebody from the Northern Kentucky Area Development who's been coordinating the whole thing for us. So a group of people from outside our city helped get the first round of people to the next level. So, and it gets a little tricky with scheduling and getting interviews scheduled with, you know, 5, 6 people coordinating from our side. So, yes, moving on, definitely trying to get it done.
Preliminary thought is that the 2% on the insurance premium tax would be restricted. That's a council decision, that's not something that you can put in the ordinance, but that's probably something that will happen as part of this budget. So it'll be restricted to roads.
It'll be restricted in the ordinance budget. In the ordinance budget is where it can be restricted.
Budget, right.
Yeah, it can't be restricted by state rules or anything else, but we can internally restrict it ourselves.
I don't know if now's the time to bring it up or not, but that ALS thing, they had that huge increase. Did they justify that anyway? Is there a reason why it's gone up so high?
Actually, I just left a meeting about that. And in a nutshell, the reason it went up is because they are not getting reimbursed by Medicare the way they thought they were going to get reimbursed by Medicare. So it doesn't really matter what you bill Medicare, they're gonna pay whatever the heck they wanna pay.
Well, is this a service that we have to have?
Legally, no.
Well,
Is it a
that's what I
service
want.
that-
I mean,
Yes, but
when
is
I
it a
was a
service?
kid, you know, somebody gets sick, the ambulance came to the house, pick them up and ran, you know, but, you know, I see these cars all over the place, you know, running to help somebody.
We don't have the, right, we don't have the chase car now like they used to. We actually have a paramedic on the ambulance for the run. In the past, when we had Erlanger as the ALS provider, they would send a car that would meet the ambulance. We don't have that anymore. We've just.
So is that why it's gone up, because every ambulance
No.
has a, paramedic, you know, is where they used to not.
I would say that the rate that they're asking for was probably the same as what we were paying Erlanger at the time, or thereabouts, pretty close, Jim, somewhere in that vicinity.
Yeah, it's about where we started.
Where we left Erlanger, now they're asking to go right back to where we were.
But Erlanger went up since then too.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was,
Still, it's something like that.
that's the thing, I was under the impression that this would cost almost double or something like that. Because, what was our fire department and the ALS went up $70,000.
Total.
50,000
Total
of it was
70.
for the advanced life-saving thing, and the
The
other
20
amount was for the fire department.
Right. That's the first increase in 3 years.
Villa Hills isn't responsible for that whole amount, right?
Correct.
60%?
Right. And I have that budget. I could include, if you want me to email it to you, I can do that. It's marked on here as a draft, but I don't think it's gonna change, to be honest with you.
You didn't have that?
It's there all.
From experience, it's weird how they do the billing
Yeah, just ask.
uh,
I'll go find things that I have.
for the ambulance service.
Well,
You need it.
yeah, you know, we do spend a lot of money as a city, but of all the money we spend, I think this is really well spent.
Oh, I agree with that, but I'm saying the way they get the bills to the individuals and through Medicare and insurance companies, it's odd how the bills come in.
Especially if you live in Villa Hills, Crescent Springs, because it's soft billing. So they'll ask you to pay it, and if you don't pay it, they write it off.
Well,
Which is-
my mother was transported, she was at Madonna Manor, and we got 2 bills from 2 different services for the same, for the same incident. And when I called and questioned why there was 2 different ones, they said, oh, that's the same company. So I mean, that in itself was confusing.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So there is some peculiarities with how the bills get sent to Medicare and so on. And I don't know what can be done about that, but I mean, they use a billing service to do it, right?
They do have a billing service. They have a person up at the firehouse who is, I mean, she is really well versed in this stuff, and she does it all the time.
But the bill didn't come from the firehouse, right? They use a billing company that sends out the bills?
ADPI, I think is their name, and they send the bill directly to Medicare. And they are paid only if we get paid. So it's in their best interest to try to make sure that gets through properly to Medicare. Medicare simply isn't paying the bill.
Well, after Medicare paid their portion, I think there was a slight balance left that we got the bill for.
Which would be
Probably.
normal. But it's a soft bill. If you didn't pay it, that nothing would happen.
Well, yeah.
But paid it, but yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, you're paying it one way or another. You're either paying it in your taxes, which is what we're talking about here, or you're paying direct. And
Yeah, but the citizens of Villa Hills are gonna pay for it both ways then, because they'll get a bill and then they'll have to pay the taxes too.
potentially,
But that's the thing that I was talking about, when, my mother was at Madonna Manor as well, and had to make a couple of trips to the hospital. And I was talking to one of the volunteers up at the fire station, and he says, well, why don't you call us? Yeah, we'll take you there for nothing. And come find out that they would call a private ambulance service, and it came through just like in the same type of bill. You don't know who's charging you what.
You know, now that you mention that, I don't know which bill was which now, because she had one that was the fire department and one that was a private ambulance.
There you go.
So I'm not, I'd have to look back to see which was which.
I can't speak to that, but Jeff Wynn will be at our caucus meeting in 2 weeks. And you'll be there, I'm sure, every month, so you can bring it up then, and Jeff would be happy to answer those questions. But the lion's share of the increase is simply, it's not an increase in expense, it's a decrease in revenue, and that's why we're hitting ding. Now, there are some expense increases, but they're not, they're like 3% increase for the person who runs the ALS service. Crescent Springs had an issue with that. For me, a 3% increase on somebody that does that kind of work, I'm not gonna argue too much about that. It's the $40,000 decrease in the revenue estimate, that's what's killing us. So, that number is in here.
Yeah, I was
Higher
looking at
number. I know there was some discussion about discussing this with the fire chief to see if anything could be done, so, we'll see what happens at the caucus meeting. But the higher number is in here, so at least we're covered if we can get that reduced.
That's the thing, I was just wondering if there was any kind of, bidding process, or we're just stuck with what we got. Cause I didn't understand how this ALS works, I didn't know if it was like a private organization or what, but.
They're highly trained people that actually are up at the fire department.
It's
That's
part of
what
the
our
fire
role is.
department now.
Right,
Okay, so do
Used
they
to be
get paid by
contracted.
calls, or are they a full-time staff?
full-time.
They're full-time.
Yeah, they're just like BLS, they're just like basic life support, except they're a little bit more skilled, they're more trained. They can administer drugs on the way to the hospital or wherever they're going. BLS cannot, so you could be in a situation where if a BLS ambulance responds and you need medication on the way to the hospital, you could be in trouble. So, I think we're getting a much higher level of service, and I think we're paying for it, but in my mind, it's well worth it. The other thing, you mentioned, when we were kids, the ambulance comes and takes you, and that's the end of it. Well,
Yeah.
the rules are a heck of a lot different than they were when we were kids. And, every year, they just keep getting more and more stringent about that, and we have to have more and more higher qualified people up at the firehouse.
Right, but there's gonna be more and more people that won't call an ambulance because of how much money it's gonna cost.
I hear you. I hear you.
Is it only Medicare that have a problem collecting from? What about private insurance?
It's really not an issue. I mean, it's like pulling teeth to get anybody to pay a bill, but private insurance is much more forthcoming than Medicare. Medicare, basically, they say, we're not gonna pay you, see you later. And you're done. I mean, that's where you go. You call your congressman, I guess, but good luck.
Yeah, they don't have to worry about it either, do they?
No. No, they know you got nowhere to go. All right, well, please, you're more than happy to discuss this. It's not a problem, but please remember it's preliminary. It will not go out in this form, mainly because there's a $217,000 surplus in here, and you can bet your bottom dollar that ain't gonna happen.
Well, how much of that surplus have you already paid off the buildings last year?
Yeah, about 30,000.
Only 30,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
It changes every year because of the interest, but it's about 30.
About 30, okay.
Yeah. And there's a little description on the far right-hand side. It'll tell you what changed. And one of the things you asked about that 30,000, there's a loan that is no longer there. So that's why that changed.
Is that on here anywhere or not? Is it just
Mhm. Yeah, if you look at, like, just for an example, on the expenditures of administration, the third line from the bottom, equipment loan payments, the budget last year was $4,485, and this year it's zero.
Okay.
And that is a result of that. And we split that between administration, public works, and police.
Okay.
So you'll see every one of them decreased as a result of
Okay.
that.
Yes, if you flip back to the next page, or whoever it is on the next one, flip back a couple to police, it's,
And the Civil Service Commission, I guess we don't use that anymore? I'm sorry if I'm not up on my latest. We're no longer use Civil Service Commission?
I expect that civil service to go away.
Okay.
As of 2 weeks ago, the state representative voted to allow us to eliminate civil service completely for all future and former employees.
Really?
Future and current.
For current, excuse me, yeah. Yeah, thank you. So we can actually, we have the ability to get rid of it completely.
Nice.
So, I realize there's a lot to try to gulp down in one sitting, so if you have any questions on this, please either give me a call, send me an email. We probably will not discuss this all that much on Wednesday. Maybe we will, I don't know, but typically this is a caucus kind of item, mainly because of the, we need this, we need that, we need the other thing, and try to work all that in there.
If you're looking at the cover sheet, under the restricted amount, is that insurance premium the total, or is that the 2% increase?
That's the 2%.
It's actually the difference between current budget and what we anticipate, so it's more than the 2%.
Oh, but it's based on the 2%.
Based on the 2%.
Yeah, there'd be some number that goes in there.
Yeah, this dog authority thing, is that something we have to pay for as well?
Yeah, it's something for the county. County actually handles it also, all the cities contribute to it, to handle dog authority, issues.
Was it like dog catcher?
Yep.
Is that similar to like
Call
Canton
it.
County Police, they
We
don't
don't call
come unless they
Dog authority.
invited in or what?
No, they actually come in all the time, and when I was here for 2 weeks, they came in and handled an issue over on Valley Trails with a resident that had 45, 48 cats. I forget the number, you get the total number, don't quote me on that, please, but it was an issue that we had to fight, and, they came in and helped us with it, for example.
How many-
It's
how many
it's
do they
complaint
have
driven.
now?
By law, there was some challenges, some issues, and, got him some help and, whatnot, and so,
So they're allowed 0?
that's my understanding.
They're allowed 0 to what?
Cats, or pets,
Who is?
the person that was having that issue. They were not even allowed to put food, bird seed out.
Nice. What is the police capital expenditure that went from 35,000 to 0?
Vehicle,
That's the cruiser?
cruiser.
I thought we were gonna buy like a cruiser every year to get them off the road, what was the plan?
There are no fixed assets in here at all, okay?
Okay.
So they're gonna have to justify anything they want to put in the budget.
Yep.
So if you look at Public Works, it's 0, if you look at admin, it's 0, if you look
Gotcha,
at
okay.
police, it's 0.
Gotcha.
We did order a swipe card system yesterday.
Yeah, and you picked it up.
Yep.
Picked up the forms.
Good.
One other thing, the bills for payment, there are no names on this bills for payment, so I'd like to report to council that it's okay to put this on the website in addition to the financial statements. So if anybody has an objection to that, they need to let me know, but the only names that are on here are vendor names. So, I don't see any big deal with that, so.
Well, let me ask you a question about that, if you don't mind.
Sir.
For instance, you had you mentioned there was an employee that had a check paid to them that was substantiated and everything. What would be the harm of including their name, but as long as there was no personal information?
I didn't take his name off.
Okay.
The
So
only-
the
the only time-
payee's name would be fine.
If
Just
it
don't
was a
want to have
HIPAA thing, I would take it off.
Pardon me?
If it was a HIPAA
Right.
thing, anything to do with medical, I would take it off.
That was the only reason we took them off, was
Okay.
before that
Right.
lot, exactly.
But you'd be quick to point out that it was substantiated, whatever that.
Right. And the bills for payment, the HIPAA stuff is not on there. The cash disbursements, it is, because it's a different checking account. So that's why this is much easier to publish than the other thing. Because the other thing does have like 10 or 12 line items on cash disbursements out of a different checking account. But it's that it's the 125 account, and which is, everything's fine. I mean, they put money in, take money out, it just goes in tax, pre-tax instead of post-tax. So, this is a much better document to publish because it has the actual expenses to the city, not all this in and out stuff.
On the police department, do we supply all their equipment or do they have to buy it themselves?
We supply everything, 100%.
Guns,
Backup revolvers.
Yep.
Backup too?
On the Rigney, there's a thing on the
please?
Public Works.
No, I was just wondering because I know like Louisville, they don't do that and stuff like that, but I don't think we're making the same money as Louisville.
We're not even close.
The Rigney, I see we took that out for next year's budget. What was done over there this year?
What's that?
On Rigney, was that
Rigney?
park up there?
Like drainage.
The big drainage and stuff that was done, it was big, 2-foot pipe put in the ground and stuff like that, all the way around the back.
Okay.
Part of the problem was, is it Sierra, Jim?
Yeah.
Do I have that right? Sierra and Laguna. Some of those actual storm drains were being dumped into the edge of the park. And it will, over the years, I don't know what you wanna call it. However, the water would end up sitting back there because of the way it was graded. So
Right.
what we did was we put a pipe in there to get it all the way back around to dump it over the hill,
Mm.
to try and keep it from, to my understanding, it was a lot of mosquitoes and stuff. I mean, Jim lives over there, he'll tell you. I
Well,
mean,
don't forget that was a lake bottom. I mean, that's
Right.
not gonna drain.
yeah.
It's a lake. So either we gotta do something about the lake. or
But
we
that's
gotta-
all done now this year, right? And so,
Well, it's not completed, no.
No, it's not done.
so but we don't have any budget for next year?
But no fixed assets were put in.
No fixed
No.
assets?
No capital,
Capital.
no capital or any fixed assets were put in this year.
What needs to be done to that, Jim, to cure that?
I have no idea. You're gonna have to ask the engineer. Anytime you work with a lake bottom, you got a big problem if you're trying to improve drainage. By definition, that ain't going nowhere.
Now, I just
Underwater
thought you
for
had a
years.
background in geotech
Oh,
and stuff like that.
So if we don't have
See,
if we
county
have a
guy.
plan on how to fix it, why we spend $12,000 and what do we do?
Well, first of all, we're just trying to control the water.
Okay,
You know, that's phase one, is trying to figure out, okay, we got this water coming at us, how do we control it? I mean, in order, you know what I mean? And that was step one. I think there's some,
so there's more steps to come.
yes, I still believe we can put some French drains across that thing and actually help get the drainage into the big pipe they put in to get it out of the middle of that park.
Well, have you, like, contacted anybody
Our
that,
city engineer has been involved as well, yes. If that's what you were asking, I'm sorry.
yeah, I was basically wondering if there's, you
He's
know,
been up to help.
if you need somebody out there to look at it or whatever.
To have some more background than the average guy or whatever, somebody that
Well,
understands
somebody
it.
can get rid of the water, yeah.
Yeah. To my understanding, there's also a natural spring underneath it, and that's where the lake came from, and that's why the water becomes more of a challenge. If there's a
Maybe we
natural
should-
spring underneath it, you know, you've gotta find a way to get drains underneath to be able to get that water before it gets all the way to the top. in
I
my
guess that's a
opinion.
stupid question, but why couldn't they just put a lake back in there?
I think that's not a stupid question.
Nope.
I think that's a political question.
Oh, well, I don't know anything about what's political or whatever, but, I mean, if it meant to be a lake, it just seems like it ought to be a lake.
I don't think they remember who's gonna own the lake then.
Yeah.
Who's gonna be
Don't have to cut a
liable
grass
for
on the lake.
whatever that comes.
Okay, so that's what it comes
Somebody
down
falls
to,
in.
liabilities. as far as that.
Liability,
Right.
who's gonna dredge it, who's gonna keep it clean, what happens if somebody gets hurt in there,
Exactly.
you know.
And if you're gonna make it a lake, I mean, is it gonna be a public lake, or do you wanna sell it back to, there's a lot of questions around that, Mark, to be honest.
Have the next council, right, Jim?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a nightmare we've been left with by no option.
Ours.
Fire.
It's going too fast.
Question on the Easter egg hunt, do we pay for the Easter egg hunt that they had over there, is that what that
We
is?
help with it,
Did
usually.
they have one this year?
No, they did not.
Okay,
The Women's Auxiliary put that on, and then we assisted, and I bet there must be 300 to 500 kids that come over, from my understanding, in the community. And this year, the Women's Auxiliary has taken a sabbatical, I guess, if you want to say that. Nobody's helping at all over there, from my understanding, so they did not do an Easter egg hunt across the street.
okay.
Would there be any objection to collapsing all those event lines
Mhm.
into a single event line?
I like them separated. I like to see the details, personally. Is there a reason that you wanna, to collapse them, or?
Just 7 lines? Get rid of it.
I like the details, and I'll tell you why. Because I got tired of hearing Holly say about how our tax dollars are going to support the baseball fields. And I like to come back to her and also say, hey, the tax dollars support the Easter egg hunt, the fishing derby, the haunted trail, the senior bingo, et cetera, et cetera. I mean,
Alright, just that.
I think you make a good point.
she made it sound like that, unless your kids play sports, you don't get to use any facilities in the city. And I said, that's BS. I mean, look at all the stuff that, is available to the city,
You're right.
Okay, anything else on financial statements or budget, anything like that? This is another project that I'd like to, I sent this to the mayor and to Craig. This is a list of fixed assets that we currently have on the books, and I'm not sure they're all still here. So what I've asked them to do is to look at these by department. I separated them by department So if you can have each manager look at this and make sure these assets are still here, and if they're not, we need to write them off.
Yep.
There's no implications to that financially, but there's a ton of fixed assets on here, and I'm sure there's 262 fixed assets on here, and I guarantee you they're not all here. So we just need to go through these. You know, this stuff was acquired in 1989. I kind of doubt if we still have it, but you never know. Anyway, we get that cleaned up for the 6/30 financial statements for the year end. And that's all I had. Did anybody else have anything? Can you update us on where we are with the potential replacement on the?
I was thinking about that today. I was gonna call them today. We were gonna call them this week. Last week, we knew that it was the end of the tax season, I think, if my memory's correctly, the dates.
Right.
So yes, it's on the list of things to do. We have, somebody was able to graciously provide us with a couple people's names to maybe call in and talk to see if we can't bring somebody in to help us with the financials. Right now they're doing fine, but at the same token, I still think it would be more of an asset to bring somebody in to help us during the day. So if they've got issues, right now, from time to time, we struggle between Cordelia and getting stuff back and forth, and it's one of those challenges. So if they're here a couple times a week for a few hours, we got problems or questions. Hey, Sue Ann, how did you do this? Okay, now they know how to fix it a lot easier than trying to do it through email and everything else. I think it'll give our staff a lot of support from an accounting standpoint. We are not accountants by no means, and don't, but if they're here a couple, I don't know, once, twice a week, whatever, depending on how many hours, and we have accounting questions, it's easier to get answers. When Jim's talking about the balance sheet and this and that and stuff, I have to be honest, a lot of times it's going right over my head. I know that he's done an unbelievable job at helping me understand it, but at the same token, I'm not an accountant. I mean, if you want me to build something, I think I can do a pretty good job, but somebody here to help these guys would be a great asset, so that's what we're trying to do.
So you wanna hire an accountant, is that what you're saying?
No, it wouldn't be an employee, it'd be a consultant.
Consultant, just like what Cordelia's doing, but then when they would come in, they would be doing it during the day. She does it on nights and weekends, so it's harder to communicate sometimes for issues. When she's trying to explain an issue to somebody that has no accounting background at all. Via email or voicemail or whatever else. If we bring somebody in that does it during the day, basically the same thing, maybe even a little bit more, we'll see. They can go up and, how did you do this, Sue Ann? Well, let me show you, this is the way it needs to be. You know what I mean?
And if I got somebody else here during the day, they can maybe show me a few things on the revenue side of the house and posting, and we can actually increase and better disperse our, I just had the word in my head and it disappeared, segregation of duties issues and actually do it the way you're supposed to do it. Every small city struggles with segregation of duties.
There's one caveat that both names that we have are CPA or public accounting firms, and they're gonna be a hell of a lot higher than $47.50 an hour. So we're gonna have to change the budget if that's what we intend to do. Do we know what Crescent Springs does? I asked Vergamini and I got back a response that didn't make any sense. Do we know if they have somebody come in and
I don't,
do
but I
this?
can find out.
I would
I'm
find
gonna have to
out.
ask. Just call up and ask.
How much time does an accountant need? I mean, is it 10 hours a week, 5 hours a week?
No, it's 10 hours a month.
Cordelia's spending about 10 hours a month. We used to spend, which is gonna cost us, what do you think, Jim, $6 grand, $7 grand for, well,
Yeah, that's about right.
$500, it'll cost us $6,000. Before I took office, they had somebody in here that were paying over $21,000 to do the same thing. And I, quite frankly, it was a joke. I'll just flat say it, in my opinion. I've tried to keep my comments to myself. We've struggled just because of the breakdown, the communication challenges is a lot of it. Was that a fair, Jim?
Yeah, well, there were a lot of changes, and at
Yeah.
one time, we had a lot of problems at one time, with this. And we had a public accounting firm come in and help us, and they were getting $2 grand a month, and it was pretty expensive stuff. But we just don't have that many transactions, Mark, that it's a big deal.
Right, I mean, but I was thinking about like a retired accountant or
So
something.
we looked, we've tried.
Yeah, we've asked, we've ran into people, we know people that are retired and stuff, and the other thing about just picking up on an accountant, you can find a bunch of accountants out there, but it gets a little bit more dicey when you start talking, and I'll start going over my head a little bit, governmental accounting / fund accounting. So that's, you know, and that's the way the government does things. And I could not tell you in a clue without what the difference is between government accounting, fund accounting, and stuff like that. You know, that's where the city is very blessed to be able to have Jim plus John Chamberlain and Cordelia to help us get through, to make sure that we're doing it.
I guess my guess would be as far as like a government account, I guess you just have to be aware of the laws and stuff in the cities or municipalities, right? I guess there's different things there.
Yeah, it's just.
Does Cordelia not wanna do it anymore? Is that what she wanna get out?
She's wanting to get out, but at the same token, I think it'll asset, you know, it'll be a good asset for our city to actually have somebody here during the day from time, you know what I mean? She spends about 10 hours a month right now taking care of the books. So, you know, and quick numbers, I mean, if we, and I don't know what it's gonna cost, honestly, we haven't sat down, you know, $47.50, you know, or 47, whatever the number is a great deal to have somebody doing the books, to be honest with you. If it goes to 125, you know, we're talking $1,250 a month, you know, we're looking at 15 grand versus 6, and that just might be something we have to get over and deal with and move, you know, and move on with it. Again, somebody coming in while they're here, they might only spend 8 hours a month. I don't know, but so that's what we're going to do: is sit down and look and evaluate.
One mental note, LGEA funds, they do need to be restricted, so.
Restricted to what?
Its own fund, just.
I know, but restricted to what do we spend it on?
Police salaries.
Yeah, well, potentially, it could definitely be used for anything that KMA could be used for, but it also can be used for some other items, for along economic development lines. I don't know how you're going to spend $100 on economic development, but there's a list in state statute, and I can get you that list of what it can be spent on.
I know you're trying to keep me out of trouble, but for $100, if the government's got a problem with us, how we spent that $100, let them come after me. Holy crap. I know you're doing your job, though. You are, and I get it. But we get $100 from this, and it's supposed to be restricted.
That's that coal fund, isn't it?
Yeah, the coal fund. We get $100 from the coal fund.
Sweet.
I just
Sorry, I'm not on. Sometimes I don't get hung up on it. You know, if they've got more than enough time and energy to come after us for that $100, holy cow, $100. I know you're doing that. I get it.
Just saying.
Craig, quick question while the mayor's sitting here. Have you signed a check yet to pay for the shirts? Baseball shirts?
I don't think so.
It's not been put in front of me.
Well, I'm asking the question now.
I'll check Sue's floor.
Checks for Sue's floor. Yeah. Usually if they got something hot, they'll call me and I try and stop in the evening or something like that. So I'll double check and make sure
Okay.
we move it up on the priority list.
Do you, I know you want me to come, like, give a little spiel about the baseball at some meeting. Can I just write up a little spiel for you guys to give? Because we have our practices on Wednesday nights, so.
Yeah, and then not only that, we can just hand it out, and if it's not too long or anything, I can read it, and or we'll hand it out to council and hand it out for the public as well. Yeah,
Okay. I'll write up
Whichever.
a little spiel.
yep, that's fine.
Anything else for finance? There's nothing else. I guess we're adjourned. Thank you all. Appreciate you coming.
What time does it start?
Fascinating.
6:30.
It's not even 7:30?
Fascinating, huh?